How can AI improve the way our industry delivers projects? I'm Rebecca Thomas, and today I'm joined by Tim Fairley, a leader at the forefront of AI in capital project delivery. We're covering Tim's journey, his career, and why construction estimating has become such a hotbed for AI innovation. Tim, it's great to have you with us today.
Thanks. Yeah, I don't know, it's an interesting topic to speak about, so it's exciting to dive into it.
Awesome. So I do want to start asking a little bit about your history. So can you share a bit about your career to date and perhaps some of the milestones you're most proud of?
Yeah, sure. So I studied electrical engineering at uni, and then I got a job at a big infrastructure construction company, and I guess so I've been in the industry about 8 years now, and across my career, something I found is a lot of people go from studying technical engineering degrees to then working in like construction roles, like site engineering roles, project management roles, like even commercial roles. And I found like uni prepares you for like a technical job. So like I studied electrical engineering. It's all about circuits and transistors and signal processing. But like the experience people have working in a construction company is completely different. It's all about schedules, budgets, contracts. And I was probably a couple of years into my career, and I thought there was this massive gap for I guess like structured postgraduate training. And so like I set on this sort of a bit of a weird journey of like building courses and training that fill in the gap between what people learn at uni to what they then actually need to apply in their jobs. Like I guess like coming back to like what my biggest like career achievements been and what I've been most proud of is I basically like built this series of construction management courses that covered those sort of core project management skills like estimating, contract management, and scheduling. And I've had well over 50,000 people take them, which has been like really exciting and cool. But where I've had, I guess, the most growth recently is I just started putting them for free on YouTube, and I've had millions of views and millions of people take them. So it's been something I'm super proud of. Like basically taking all the great insights that people like managers and mentors and things gave me, and then passing those on to other people.
It's amazing. And look, thank you for taking the time to speak to us today because, this really aligns from a values perspective on what we're trying to do as well in
Yeah.
really helping to share the learnings in this leadership series. So this is going to be a great chat. I'm really looking forward to this. So you have moved a lot into the AI space recently as
Yes.
well.
Yeah.
So when did you realize AI was going to change the industry, and why do you think that matters so much to you personally?
So I actually more or less I really had the moment I realized how big it was going to be was I was like, obviously I make videos and courses on like estimating and contract management, and I had been using ChatGPT tons. So this would be back in 2024. And I did a video on how I use ChatGPT for construction and speaking about like using it to analyze your contract or create like a pricing schedule for an estimate. And it really blew up on YouTube. So I guess that was my experience. I thought, oh wow, this is a topic people are really interested in. And then I just kept going further and further down the rabbit hole of different ways to apply AI, how to use it. And I actually tried to build my own AI estimating and contract management software. And I thought that was the pathway to go down that made the most sense. But like 6 months later and a lot of money pumped into it, it wasn't much of a success. So I think like AI is just moving so fast, and I had the experience that you can like try and build things and that sit on top of AI. But I think those like base models like Claude, ChatGPT, and Gemini, are just getting better and better, and so much money is being like put into the AI industry to actually build out these models and make them more and more capable that like it's very hard to compete with them. And like you can just do more and more stuff. And it's like getting pretty incredible like what you can actually like even like Claude Cowork and Claude Code, what you can get them to what you can actually get them to do.
So, thinking about a project manager working in construction today, what do you think AI and project management actually looks like day to day right now?
So I think there's like two sides to AI. There's the like the ad hoc usage, which is someone just setting up Claude, ChatGPT, or Gemini, and they come across tasks they want AI to do, and it's not really like very structured. It's like, oh, I'm looking for the specifications on like concrete curing in my project documents. Can you help me find it? So there's or like I want to I don't know, prepare a schedule for my project. Can you create a first draft for me? I'd say that's the like the human triggering them, the ad hoc usage. And then the other side of it is the more like structured pre-built workflows, which I think is probably the next stage of where it's going. And I guess there's a lot of discussion about how all the different ways you can use it, but I haven't really seen a lot of companies actually using it or applying it like that. It all, to me, what I'm seeing now is people, I guess, the ad hoc approach where they've got access to like Claude or ChatGPT and they're building out and they're like querying it when they come across problems where they think it can help with.
And so I guess you've given some examples there of some of the tools that people are using day to day on a more ad hoc basis. Have you got other examples of AI tools that you think are making a difference in construction and project management today?
Yeah, I am a really firm believer that anything that helps you record and manage your data is, and you can connect it to ChatGPT or Claude or software like that, is the real, I guess, like unlock in terms of how to use AI. Because like these AI models, they're just trained on all the data on the internet. So Reddit, like Google pages, like chat threads, just so much random information that, and they're like completely domain, like they're not specific to any domain. So like to really get the most out of AI and actually use it properly, you always have to give it the data you need to do the task. For a lot of the time, like I've seen people be critical of AI, for example, where they like ask it to prepare an estimate for their project and it does a bad job. But then you look at like how they've used it and they haven't given it their cost rates, they haven't given it their productivity, they haven't told it the output format you need it in. So like I think the tools that are really useful with how you use AI is anything where you're giving it like your data and your structure. So for example, like I know Mastt does that where you have like you would record all your costs in there, you have your schedule, you have your risk and opportunities. And because like AI has this background information about your project, it can answer like much more reliably and much more specific to how you want to use it. Or for example, like for my own business, I use like Notion a lot. And Notion is just like a note taking app. But the fact that it links to AI, that whenever I want to ask it to do something or ask it for a bit of information, it's already got access to all my information. So it's not answering from like a clean slate. It's answering from like the information you actually want it to use.
Yeah, I look a lot at how AI is shaping the industry as well, and I do feel like there's something there around training it almost like a junior staff member, and
Yeah.
taking the skills that we've developed as managers over the years to really be able to help it to give us the correct answer. And I
Yeah.
guess that sort of leads into the next question that I want to ask about responsibility. So, when AI is helping make decisions on major projects, who ultimately is responsible when something goes wrong? And how do business owners stay in control?
Yeah. So I have kind of like two things I've thought about this question. Number one is that like you can't sue AI. Like it like I think in the eyes of like the law and everyone, it's not responsible. Like the person using it is responsible. The second one I think I know a lot of people make that analogy of like AI is like a graduate employee, which I think that analogy holds up to like a certain extent. Where I think it sort of
Okay.
falls apart is a graduate employee gets better. Like AI doesn't get better unless you actually make it get better. And like the way you make it better is like you give it better instructions, you give it more access to your data. And I think a lot of the way people currently use AI is there's no like they don't have a consistent approach to like improving the quality of the output it generates. So there's this really funny one going around when Opus 4.7 came out, the most recent Claude model. People were asking it, there's a car wash at the end of my street. I can't remember the question exactly. There's a car wash at the end of my street. What's the best way to get there? And Opus and the new Claude model that everyone said was as smart as a PhD scientist was suggesting they walk because by the time you get in your car and park, it's more efficient to like by the time you actually do that, go through all that, you'll actually be quicker if you walk to the car wash. But of course, it's like to us, it's a ridiculous answer to the question because um, we know that you're obviously taking your car to the car wash to get washed. But like the way these AI models like work, and like I'm not an expert on this. I've had these experiences when you're asking to do like what you would see as like a simple task, but it's like frustratingly just not doing it right or being like way too verbose or giving you too much information or like is they don't like sort of they can't see past the question you ask it. They only see like what is he like specifically asking and making the like best response to that question. And I think like the term they use in AI is it doesn't have like a theory of mind. It doesn't really understand what you, the user, are trying to ask it. So like the way you have to like think about these models is that like yes, they can help you make decisions, but you're the one who has to like guide and structure and point them in the right direction and like you're actually responsible for the quality of the output of it. But yeah, I guess like that's like I've used it for like estimating tasks and a lot of other areas, and it's just like frustratingly stuff that you would think is really easy, and like someone who has some understanding of what you're trying to do would be like quite a simple thing to do. It can be like frustratingly complex, and I think at the end of the day, like I mean, everyone says it, like it is a tool, but I think people often like blame the tool when it does a bad job, but they don't really understand like how much they can do to actually get better results out of it.
Yes, I for many years I worked for a gentleman who used to always say to me, "The devil's in the detail," and I do think that that's sort of where the human always needs to be able to come in and look at the detail of what's coming out and making sure that what
Yeah.
AI is presenting to us is something that we would be confident to present as well and be proud of.
Yeah. So like I've found this as well, something I've noticed is a lot of people I think massively overuse it or they overuse it in the wrong way. Like for example, when you're preparing like a tender submission or preparing an estimate, the most frustrating part of it is actually working out what you need to price and like going through like 50 pages of bid documents and all these drawings and trying to like understand scope. And like, I think some people there I've noticed will use AI to almost like simplify that for them. But I think that's like exactly the wrong place to use it because unless you actually spend the time to like understand the background of the project and what the drawings show and where this bit of information is, if you're trying to shortcut that process by getting AI to do it, then everything going forward but you're then like every task you get it to do because you haven't actually made that effort to understand it yourself, it's impossible to point AI in the right direction. Um, so I think there is like, I guess you have to be like, you see it very much like a tool that you point in the right direction.
Yes. Yes, I can see that. So let's talk a little bit about trust. So where should AI not be trusted?
Okay, yeah. So I think so sort of like similar to what I was saying before, I think where AI shouldn't be trusted, you can sort of put into like two categories. There's the like behavioral side of things, and then there's like the technical side of things. So I know, for example, from like a technical perspective, it's like counting and reading drawings, it's incredibly bad at. There's a really like interesting benchmark study that looks at how well AI can read analog clocks. And like the human baseline for reading an analog clock is like, 90%. Which I mean, it's almost like surprising it's not higher. But so like a human can read like an analog clock with 90% accuracy. But So this has actually changed a lot in the last like couple of weeks, which I think is really interesting. But the best AI models could do so with like 20% accuracy. Now, I think the new GPT model is like up to 50% accuracy. So there's like, that is obviously a massive technical limitation of AI where like the way the models are like trained, this is my understanding of it, is like you can show them a picture of a cat and they're very good at saying like, this is a cat. But if you show it like a trench length on a drawing and it has to scale a measurement, that sort of like very precise measurement, or like, for example, understanding like on a piping diagram, difference between a dashed line and a straight line means like a completely different service. But to the way like AI processes images, it's actually very hard for it to understand that difference. So like, I think, I guess going back to your question, like that is a technical limitation of AI. Like it's not good at reading construction drawings. The other big technical limitation is obviously like construction projects happen in the real world. Like you walk around, see things on site, you know, like the status of things. You have like face-to-face conversations with people, you have phone calls with people. There's so much information you would collect as a project manager that is never going to make its way into the AI's context. So like obviously if it doesn't have, I mean, it's just obvious. Like if it doesn't have access to that information, it's not going to be able to do anything useful with it. So that's the first like category of things where I say they're like the technical limitations of it. The other category of things I think are like behavioral limitations where we as people, if we have access to these tools that can like theoretically do everything, it becomes almost impossible not to over rely on them. And I think so for like the example I was using before about like if you're bidding a project, you should be the one who goes through the bid document to try and understand the scope and build this background knowledge. Like I think that is something you should do as the person responsible for it. You shouldn't be relying on AI to like curate and do that for you. And the like sort of I think when you're thinking about when you should, from like a behavioral perspective, like the fact that you have this tool that can just automatically go and do things for you, the way I like to think about that is you have like low risk tasks and high risk tasks. If you have a task that if AI stuffs up is like like significant and consequential for your like business or your project, it's a person that should do it. Or a person that should like, I mean, maybe use AI a little bit, but you should be like very aware of exactly what's happening and checking it and knowing exactly how it's doing it. Um, but if it's like small, low risk, so like I guess like an example that would be like actually preparing a construction estimate. Like, sure, you might get it to help in bits and places, and it saves you a little bit of time. But like, it isn't like, you know, construction companies run at like 5 to 10% margin. Like, if you have a 5 to 10% error on your estimate, like that's your profit margin gone. So like the idea that you're trying to save a couple of hours by getting AI to do that for you, like it just doesn't make any sense to me. Like it's not in those circumstances, you should use AI more as like a tool to improve the quality of what you've done, but you shouldn't be getting it to like, you shouldn't be relying on it. But that's different to what I would say is like a low risk task where if AI even completely butchers it, it just wouldn't really matter that much. But I think there is a lot of like admin use cases and just like boring, repetitive work that it probably doesn't matter if it's like done badly. So like a good example of that would be say at the start, like, and like, I know every project I've been on, people do a terrible job of doing this anyway and make tons of mistakes doing it. But like you say at the start of any project, you have, you know, 10 different registers, 50 standard templates, a lot of just basic documents. And you just have to go through all the documents and change the project name from project A to project B, update like the dates and a couple of key bits of information. Like that's obviously a great use case of AI because it would take someone ages, but then AI just does it in like 20 minutes. So I think that sort of behavioral side of things, I like to think of it, is it like a low risk task or is it a high risk task? If it's a high risk task, it should be a person responsible. If it's a low risk, you can rely on AI to do it.
Yeah, excellent. I think this is probably where we as an industry really need to focus as well is making sure that we're clear on the low risk and the high risk and what needs to be validated and what just needs to be done by a human. So I think what you've said
Yeah.
there is really, really valuable. Let's talk a bit more about moving AI into the organization. So a lot of people are using AI tools individually. You've talked about that. They've
Yeah.
just got Claude and they're asking it to help them with their day-to-day work where they see fit. But how do you scale that into something the whole organization can rely on?
Yeah. So I think when you're looking at the like day-to-day use case of AI, the ad hoc stuff, like the biggest thing a company can do is make it much easier to give the correct context to AI to do tasks. So for example, you have like a construction company would have like a database with all their like cost and productivity rates, like standard contract terms and conditions, their estimating workflow, who their key supplier contacts are. If you can put your data in some format, whether that's like using like Claude has a SharePoint connector. Like if you have a folder in your SharePoint that has all of that information in it, every time you ask AI to do something, it has access to that relevant data. I think you can do that at the like the business level and also at the project level. At the project level, you could have um, like your there's like simple processes you can do. Like if you're using Claude Cowork, you can convert a lot of your files into Markdown, which like if your AI is reading like a text document versus if it's reading a PDF, it'll answer like it'll use like 20 to 30 times less tokens. So you can use like strategies like that where you like the business has like a process for setting up their SharePoint folders with like markdown mirrors of all the folders in their all the documents in their SharePoint. And it's just way easier for AI to read and understand it. And as well, like you're obviously like saving on your token usage, but you're also like AI is going to answer like quickly and more accurately because it's got to go through less information to find it. I think that's the context setup thing. And like you don't have like that doesn't have to be in like I sort of like think this ties into where I think like a lot of construction project management software are actually really useful because they just force you to structure your data and collect records in a certain way. And like a lot of softwares, like for example, like I know Mastt has AI features built into it. Like it's they just basically that the AI within Mastt has access to all your data and project information, so it can answer so much more accurately. And it's like that makes that day to day use, like that day to day usage, much better. So I'd say that's like the organization can help with that. I call it context curation. The other side of that is any sort of process you have, any like standard operating procedure, like this is how we do procurement, this is how we manage quality on a project, you can pretty much take that principle of having a process and turn it into an AI workflow. So, for example, like Claude has Claude skills, which like like the purpose of a Claude skill is you can take like construction companies a process for setting up and managing quality on a project and you can convert that into a skill. So like when everyone wants to set up their quality management system on a project, they run that workflow and it knows like here's how a company sets up a QA, look through the project documents, create a list of all the inspection and test plans and pre-populate these from our templates. So I guess that's the workflow side of things. So there's like the setting up the context and the other is replacing like your standard ways of doing things, your standard operating procedures, build those out as AI workflows. And like Claude Skills is awesome for that. Like it's really good for that.
So I want to talk a bit about the future now. So I'm going to ask you to look into the future for me. Where do you think the AI will take construction project management in the next 5 years?
Yeah, it's a hard question to answer because I know like my thesis about it like 9 months ago when I started building my software was completely wrong. So like I know like and I think anyone who like anyone who says they know what is gonna happen, I think is like I wouldn't really trust. But I think number one is like uh, I don't think this is like the models have been trained on like all of the data on the internet already. These like AI companies have spent tens of billions of dollars, like so much money has been invested in them. I don't know how like and like everyone's saying it's a massive bubble. I don't see how that is kind of sustainable unless like AI becomes way more expensive to use. So I think the cost of using AI is going to go up um, a lot. I think specifically like within construction, I think so like the way we've been using it where we use it to everything and you ask it like a lot of stupid questions, I think is probably going to be not as easy to do. Like I think the cost has to go up, but like maybe I'm wrong about that. The second thing I think is it's actually like I've heard this comment that it's like very different automating a task versus automating a job. And you can automate like some of the tasks a construction manager does, but unless you fully automate the job, you can't really like I don't think you can replace people. And I think specifically with construction, there's way too much. It's not like it's not a like set workflow that's completely contained in a computer that theoretically AI could automate. There's too much time like going around on site, talking to people, seeing things. I think there's obvious limitations in how well it can read and understand drawings. So I don't really see how it could like automate or come anywhere near automating the role of a construction manager. I think the place where it's probably going to get the most, that people are really going to see a lot of benefits is if you're already using like a construction management software and already have your processes all built in some sort of software. And automating tasks within a software, I think, is probably going to be pretty like much more common. So instead of like, I don't know, instead of you having to prepare a payment claim every month, like AI looks at your progress data and automates and automatically populates that. So I suspect there'll be like a lot more workflows like that already built out and more sort of like task automation rather than much more of the actual task automation than the like ad hoc usage, I'd say. And then I think maybe it's probably further than 5 years away, but I think because a lot of the like say you look, for example, like a general contractor that subcontracts out all of their work, I think that layer of management is the exact sort of like what a general contractor would manage and coordinate, I think is going to be increasingly what part of like construction management is going to be automated. So I think it's going to be like the softwares and tools will get better, which makes it easier for like a project owner to go to say 6 or 7 trades and manage the project themselves with like 1 or 2 engineers, as opposed to like what's historically happened where you have like a general contractor that has a bigger layer of management on it. That's if I think like, I mean, yeah, if I think what would probably be the big shift in the industry, that's probably further than 5 years away though. Yeah, like realistically, I think that's probably much further than 5 years away, but that's where I would see it as like the type of company that I think is probably most likely to struggle. But yeah, again, like it's all like I think it's so hard to predict the future, and like these things are always way more complicated than anyone wants to make them out to be.
Yeah, that's true. Which means my next question might be a bit of a tricky one, or it might not be. See how you go with it. I
Okay.
want to talk about top tips. So
Yeah.
that's taking a pretty complex subject and I guess bringing it into a couple of top tips that you would give. So for a program director managing a large capital project right now, so not in 5 years, but right now, what are your top tips for getting value from AI today?
Yeah. So, I guess for a program director where you're across multiple projects, you could definitely use AI to speed up the reporting process and keeping up to date with what's happening. And like as well, like using, I guess, like the AI judgment a little bit to surface key issues and look through, like, I guess, like a project knowledge base and find certain issues. I guess that is, and like, I guess the tip, like, which would be implied by that is you need all of your project data in a format that it's easy for AI to access, which goes back to that thing I was saying before about like actually thinking and setting up processes around how you structure your project information so it is like very easy for AI to read and access. And the second one, I mean, it's probably like very similar to the tips I would give to a construction company, is actually thinking about anything where you have a workflow, what can you actually um, replicate in AI, and what sort of processes and things can you take and reshape those as an AI workflow? Those would be the two big ones, I think. And I guess like probably maybe the third one is not to have. I actually say this to a lot of people I work with, is not like, I think people get caught up with the the scope of things you could potentially do with AI being different to what you like should do. And I would say to people, it's better to start with like very small specific workflows that you know are genuinely useful and iterate from there, rather than to think up like 50 things you could do with it and never do it. I just think like small incremental steps and actually like, getting it to do something useful in like 30 minutes, as opposed to like having this like grand AI strategy of a million things you could do and completely reshaping your business and doing 100 different things differently. It's much better to start with like small specific workflows that are like genuinely useful and solve genuine problems. But yeah.
So I now want to move into, I guess, the last part of our interview. We're going to be
Yep.
talking about construction estimating, which I know is an area that you're very
Yeah.
expert at. So I'm going to start, I guess, with a more a question related to AI with this. So, what is construction estimating, and why is it such a big focus for AI right now?
Yeah. So estimating is the process of working out how much it costs to build something. And so for any construction project, you'll go to a contractor for a quote to deliver the project. For the contractor to prepare that quote, they need to be able to estimate how much it costs to do. And I think for any construction business owner, like estimating is an overhead. Like if they could press a button and it spits out an estimate, like that would be everyone's dream software. Because like people don't want to do it. Like they want to sit, go through drawings, do quantity takeoffs, like get quotes from subcontractors. Like people just want an estimate done. It's like very much construction companies see it as an overhead. And I think, I just think that's naturally why it's such a big focus, because like a lot of people just see it like that. And I think at face value, it has a lot of potential. It has a lot of potential to do that. And I think people don't really understand the nuance about like how AI struggles to read drawings, and a lot of the actual work in preparing an estimate is not so much about number crunching, but actually like judgment calls and understanding scope and what inclusions and exclusions to leave in your bid, and like how are you pricing it versus how is the market pricing. I think people probably don't appreciate how big a part of estimating that actually is. And because people see it as almost this like mechanical number crunching exercise, I think it like intuitively for people, it seems like something AI should be able to do. Yeah, that's just purely why I think there's such a focus on it. Not, I don't think it's coming from like, I don't know if there's tons of data out there or evidence out there that it can actually do estimates or be as good as an estimator. I think it's purely because people don't want to do estimating.
Are you seeing many estimating mistakes in this space? Are you seeing those mistakes happening?
Yeah, the one I've seen a lot is like people shortcutting understanding the scope and trying to just get too many AI summaries and not really understanding what they're bidding. I think I personally haven't seen really people doing like full estimates with AI. I'm like, maybe that's just my like experience, which is more like infrastructure and commercial. I'm not sure. Maybe in the residential space, maybe there's more of people doing that, but I haven't really seen people doing a lot of end-to-end estimates with AI. But I'd say the biggest mistake I would see is like people not actually understanding what the project scope is, and like overusing AI. and expecting it to be able to do everything when it is very much like you have to think about you have to think of it as a tool that you like point to specific problems and get them to do like very niche specific things. Like for example, in my when I do like estimates, I have like an estimating spreadsheet and you get like a quote for like a certain type of materials and it has 20 line items. I think it's great to like copy that into like the Claude for Excel plugin and it just extract those rates and updates your rates in your Excel sheet. I think for like little use cases like that, it's great. I think probably the mistake is that people think they're going to be able to build this like AI estimator that just does estimates for them exactly the way they want it. I think it's not like there yet or anywhere near there.
So, how should teams review AI generated estimating outputs, though, if they are using it for some of those use cases you've talked about?
I think you can like in terms of I think some people I've seen using it for like conceptual or budget pricing. And I think the way you would structure or way you would review it is you need like really good historical cost data. So like you've got say 10 example projects and you know roughly like concrete costs, supplying and install concrete cost X dollars per meter cubed. Or like X plus or minus 20%. Or you have like the electrical scope on a building should cost X dollars per meter squared. Like I think if you have really good data, you can basically like be very confident that things would fall within a certain range. And to be honest, it's the exact same process that you would review, say you like own a construction business and you employ an estimator and he comes to you with an estimate for a solar farm and it's $15 million and you haven't actually gone through and looked at the detail, but you know, like it should cost, like solar should cost about $1.50 a watt. So like that makes sense. But like if it comes up with a number that's double that, then like you'd know that's outside your like reasonable range of tolerance. I think that's probably the best way to think about checking is you need like a really good benchmark of like benchmark data to compare it against and sort of be really confident in the range that it would sit in. And that's just like sort of what I was saying. You just need good data. You need good data and good numbers and it's only going to be as good as the information it has. Like a lot of like I think like the other thing is people have this misconception that um like AI is automatically knows all this stuff. Like for example, if you ask like if you open a new ChatGPT chat and you ask it what's a reasonable production rate for installing formwork, like it probably won't be anything like what you do on your projects. But like it's silly to rely on AI to do that when that should be a number that you as a business or a owner have. But if you give it that number, it's going to do a way better estimate. So I think, yeah, you just really want to basically, like I always say, like you should see AI as a data transformation tool. Like you give it the input information you need, you tell it what to do with the information and you tell it the output format you want, and then it'll do a pretty good job. But if you're relying on like AI to give you your formwork production rate or like to know costs per meter cubes of concrete, like I think that's like, that's just not how it works.
As you've been talking about that, I was just thinking about how, when I started my career 20 years ago, knowledge is power was always the thing that people were saying. This is like the next iteration of knowledge is power, but knowledge is power for AI.
Yeah,
you need to give
definitely.
it the data.
Yeah, you always have to give it the information it needs to do the task. And I think a lot of the criticisms I see of AI for doing stuff is people have given it the wrong information. Well, no, so not the wrong information. People haven't given it the information it needs to do something.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, so I want to ask you a question. Customers of Mastt talk about how AI works for what is in the drawings, but sometimes the risk is what's not in the drawings. How does AI get around this issue?
So yeah, this is something I've experimented a lot with. That I think one of the challenges with like a construction project is say you're like engaging a contractor to build a building. You're trying to like articulate what they have to do based on like a concept set of drawings and a scope of works. And I think there's so much like implied stuff behind it. And like often when like with that example, like people saying you should, like people saying that they should, the challenge is often what's not in the drawings or not in the scope. And then say something comes up and then you try to put in a variation to your client and they say, well, you should have known about that. Or like what everyone loves to say is like a competent contractor should have been aware of that. I think there's like two sort of ways to do this. Like number one is basically you would have to build up over time your own library of like lessons learned or things to check against. Comes back to like the data thing I was saying. Like you just need to basically build your own library of lessons learned. The other thing I've found is AI can be very good at like brainstorming. Like for example, if you say for a project, like you give it the project scope and the drawings and you tell it, come up with 100 things that could possibly come up as an issue during construction. I think that sort of brainstorming, it's surprisingly good at. So I find sometimes that strategy works really well. But yeah, you could do a sort of a combination of both, I guess, to sort of extrapolate out and come up with trying to work out what's not there. But yeah, that is like a bit of a limitation of AI as well. Like it's always like it's trained on data, so it's always like real looking. It wouldn't I don't like it's not like natively creative, and it wouldn't come up with something that you'd never think of. But then a lot of the time people don't either. So that's why you need like experienced project managers who worked on a lot of these types of projects and know the issues you're likely to come up against. But yeah, I don't think it's necessarily just like an AI problem. It's definitely a risk problem in the construction industry. There's just so much like uncertainty, and so many things you don't know. Like it's pretty like systemic problem.
Yeah, it's really occurred to me in this chat. You've given me a lot of clarity on the key areas to focus on, which is data, making sure that you're feeding it the right knowledge, the right information, and then having that genuine real world experience so that you can actually efficiently validate that what it is producing based on the quality data you're feeding it is useful. And I think this has been just such a valuable conversation on AI. I definitely have a huge amount of clarity now on the areas to focus on, and I'm sure those watching this conversation will feel the same too. I now want to move into talking a bit about software. So this one question isn't about AI necessarily, but it could be. It's up to you how you want to answer it.
Yeah.
So what should a capital project owner look for in construction estimating software? And what separates a good tool from a bad one?
So I think the best construction software that was ever made was Excel. And I think like most people in the construction industry would probably agree with me. I think Excel is just so good for estimating. And I think like if you build like a good template and structure it a certain way, it's like it's just really good and easy to use. I think for big companies, the problem with Excel is it doesn't really scale. You run into issues with version control. You have like 10 different versions of a template going around. Like someone changes something and it breaks. Like someone doesn't really understand how the template works. So like I would almost come at the problem of like what should you look for in a construction estimating software as what do you where does like Excel break? And I think like you want like version control. You want like some sort of like rate library and database, and then something which sort of has the a lot of the workflows around like importing subcontractor quotes and like maintaining a rate library native to it. Like what I would see is like, because most small contractors I don't see using like an estimating software, but most big contractors do. And I think it's because you go from like an Excel template that people share around and it just doesn't scale. So yeah, that's what I would really see. It's like those things like version control, like a single rate library that people share, being able to have like assemblies, like combinations of resources built into it that people can use. For the AI piece, I would be super interested, and I don't know, I actually haven't seen this, is anything that like has like a connection to Claude or ChatGPT. I like am a big believer that AI within tools isn't as good as like AI. I mean, like it is obviously good within tools for like small specific tasks you want to do, but I really like anything where you can connect your own like Claude to it. Um, your own like Claude or ChatGPT account, because then you get a lot of the benefits of what they're building out in Claude and ChatGPT natively. Because like these companies are spending like billions and billions of dollars of making like the best general knowledge purpose-built tools. Like anything where you can integrate or like use Claude or ChatGPT and connect to your estimating software. And then I guess like as well, like the takeoff piece as well. And I know like everyone wants AI generated quantity takeoffs. Like I haven't heard anyone saying they're actually using an AI generated takeoff tool or have had success with it. I think if someone actually solved that, it would be massive.
Forgive my ignorance. What's a takeoff tool?
A takeoff is where you have a set of construction plans and you need to know like how many tap fittings you have to order. So what you do now is you go through the drawings and count it all. It's the most like it's a very like manual process, but everyone wants AI to do it. The other thing I think is like kind of a frustrating thing about our industry, and I don't fully understand why it happens like this, but all the software that people do designs in, like Revit and any of the design softwares, they can auto generate quantities, but no one ever sends people bills of quantity. So we're still like stuck in this like loop of like someone builds a design in a 3D model, it gets converted into a set of 2D drawings, then someone gets their takeoff software and manually counts everything on it when the data actually exists in the
Oh,
original 3D model. So I'm not sure if like that AI takeoff problem is going to be solved by like the workflow changing, or it becomes more standard for like the actual BIM and the 3D models of the buildings and the structures to actually be passed directly to the people doing it. Um, but who knows?
well, I think change won't happen unless we talk about it. So I think it's great for
No.
you to put that out there, because it really only takes someone working in the software to think about, well, how can I make this easy
Yeah.
for our customers to be able to make that change. So that's a really good tip to hear. And the other thing I wanted to say was I thought it was really interesting how you talked about Excel as well, and I guess the scalable point was really important as well. You know, in my role with Mastt, I'm really lucky that I do get to talk to a lot of our users and to find out, you know, why they value the software. And one of those things that consistently, every single time I interview a customer, they always say that because they use Maskt, when they give a report to the executive, they're passing it up to the board, they can finally just trust the data because they aren't
Yeah.
concerned about, did that Excel spreadsheet have a formula that maybe wasn't delivering the right number? And as you say, the version control as well. So I thought, you know, I think that's really interesting to see that what you've talked about, where you've got the smaller company versus those really large capital projects, the importance of making sure that you do
Yeah.
have an out-of-the-box solution to be able to manage those things as well.
I mean, everyone ends up with 15 versions of every spreadsheet and some just break and then no one can ever work out why. But I mean, it is like Excel is amazing. Like it's just not designed for that, I think. Um, so
Absolutely. Okay, so let's jump into our next question. So, for someone building their estimating skills, what are your top practical tips?
So if someone wants to learn to estimate, I think you need a practice problem to work on. And in parallel with that, you need to learn the fundamentals. I've always been someone who I can never learn by just listening to something. Like I always have to do something. But I think like the problem is if you go and try and do something yourself is you don't really understand the fundamentals. So I think you always have to like have some sort of like course or like lecture or something that explains how to do it. But at the same time, you have to be like experimenting and trying to do it yourself. I think that's the only way you actually properly learn. I mean, I just really struggle to like listen to something and then apply it. Like I have to be doing it myself to properly understand it. So that's the biggest practical one. Like either find a practice project or get a project through your work and then like actually do it at the same time as like you either have like a mentor explain how to do it or like learn the fundamentals. And it's those two in parallel that really make like you master something, I think.
So, Tim, my final question today, because I know you've got to go. If there was one message that you really like to leave with the industry after this chat, what would that be?
I think the main one would be is if you like rather than getting frustrated with AI as not being able to do something or limitations with AI, you see it with as like a limitation with how you're using it and you try and like solve the problems around that. I think you'll get a lot more out of it. Like a lot of the criticisms I see, like a lot of the failures I see of people using AI isn't necessarily the AI itself. It's like how they're structuring the problem or like what information they're giving it or what information they're not giving it. So if you really want to, like, I guess, adopt AI and not even so much learn how to use it, because I don't think it's that hard to use. It's more like thinking about if it's not doing what you want it to do, like how can you like experiment and iterate and try giving it different information or getting it to solve the problem a different way. I think it's very much, you have to just really experiment with it a bit, not just try it once and decide it sucks.
Tim, thank you so much for your time today. It has been an absolute joy learning from you. And I'm sure everybody watching this discussion will really value that as well. So thank you very much.
No worries. Thanks.
Thank you.
No, that was good. Thanks.
Thanks for watching, guys. If you want to know more about construction and get all the professional tips, tricks, and AI advice from real construction project managers, follow this channel for more insights.